to be able to have a freer and a more prosperous country, we need to fight the lies and the wrong ideas, the wrong public policies imposed by these establishment politicians like the liberals, the conservatives, and yes, the NDP. And so, today, I will with you try to tell the truth. Tell the truth about what is happening in our country. Tell the truth that nobody else in the morally and intellectually corrupt establishment politicians wants to talk about. The truth regarding a series of critical issues for the future of our country. And in politics, if you want to help people, you tell them the truth. And if you want to help yourself as a politician, you tell them what they want to hear. You appeal to their emotions. Our country is governed by selfish establishment politicians, liberals and fake conservatives, who tell Canadians what they want to hear based on today's polls and focus group, not what on is the best long-term interest for our country. All they care about, conservatives, liberals, NDP, is power. They believe and promote wrong ideas, wrong public policies on crucial issues for the future of our country, such as mass immigration and radical multiculturalism that undermine our economy and culture and social cohesion. Workism that is destroying our Western civilization, and radical gender ideology that is eroding our youth mental health. All these wrong ideas are sadly widely accepted by a portion of the population. The People's Party of Canada is there to fight these wrong ideas and promote good ones by telling the truth to our fellow citizens. We know that even though an idea is not widely accepted, it doesn't mean that that idea is not just and true. And an idea does not become just and true because it's popular. Our ideas are just and true, and they will become popular if we defend them openly with passion and conviction. By doing that, we will gradually move the Overton window and change the climate of opinion. And by the way, you must know it. That's the only kind of climate change I care about. So, during the COVID hysteria, when I was arrested, handcuffed, and put in jail for a non-crime after a political gathering in a park fighting for our freedoms, the policeman asked me a question. If I had something on me that could hurt him. And I said, no, only my words, only my philosophy, only what I believe in. And yes, if we want to win the battle of ideas, we need to use our words as our weapon. We must speak out and tell the truth. That is what I'm doing tonight. So, what is the truth about mass immigration? First, we must talks about the number. The Liberal government has doubled the number of new permanent residents accepted every year, from an average of 250,000 per year the last decades to a planned for this year 500,000 of them. 500,000 of new permanent residents. But we must add to that the 700,000 people who represent the number of the international students, temporary foreign workers, and yes, the refugees, the fake ones or the real ones. So, last year, Canada opened its door to 1.2 million newcomers. That represents the entire population of the province of Saskatchewan. Canada is the fastest growing country in the Western world, and already 23% of our population was born outside the country. Yes, we are the fastest growing country in the Western world. Actually, last year, the growth of our population was 3.2%. And 100% of the growth of our population is coming from mass immigration. If you compare that with the average of Western countries, their growth last year was 0.2%. That is mass immigration. And native-born Canadians are being replaced by immigrants. This is not a far-right conspiracy theory. It's a fact, and it's a mathematical reality. So mass immigration, as you know, is also pushing up housing prices and make the housing market unaffordable. For 1.2 million newcomers in 2023, we built only about 240,000 new homes. And we need to triple the number of new homes we built each year just to meet the demand, which everybody agrees it's not possible. The only real and immediate solution to the housing crisis is to end mass immigration. It's only the real solution. It's simply math, and there's no getting around it. But both liberals and conservatives would not, talk about it. They don't want to talk about it. A single family houses with a nice backyard where you can raise your children have become totally out of reach in large part because of mass immigration. And by pushing up housing prices, mass immigration discourages young couples to have children. And the collapsing birth rate is then used as justification for even more mass immigration. So this insane, vicious cycle of self-destruction must stop. That's what they are telling us. We need more people because we don't have enough babies, and we don't have enough babies because couples cannot afford to have a nice house with a nice backyard. Mass immigration is also destroying our economy and reducing our standard of living. It keeps wages down and favor big businesses, big corporations, because they like to hire cheap labor rather than to invest in productivity enhancing technologies or increase salaries. Yes, if a business is not able to find a Canadian for a job, maybe it's because the salary is too low. So if they increase that, they may have more people that will apply. But these big businesses are going to see the government, and they are lobbying the government to be able to have cheap labor. And the government is telling them, yes, we will help you. We will give more temporary foreign workers that are coming here, and they are taking the jobs that, that are supposed to go to Canadians. And actually this summer, that was very difficult for students to have a summer job. So that is happening because of these politicians in Ottawa who are working for big businesses instead of working for Canadians. And under the Trudeau government, our standard of living, yes, is going down. Our standard of living is going down. Why? Because when the growth of your population, is growing like it happened last year with 1.2 million newcomers, the economy will grow. You have more people, you have more economic activities, so the GDP will grow. And politicians like that, they are telling you that the economy is growing, everybody must be happy, that's a good news. But the growth of the population is faster than the growth of the economy. So yes, the economy will grow, the cake will be bigger, but our piece of the cake will be smaller. The GDP per capita is smaller. Our piece of that cake is smaller because of mass immigration. And that's why our standard of living of today is the same that it was 10 years ago. We are poor. And add to that the inflation policy because of our big deficits. The government is doing deficit, the federal government, with the support of the Conservatives and the NDP, they are voting for all these spending, and we have so much spending that the private sector doesn't want to buy any of our bonds anymore, so the Bank of Canada has to print money out of thin air, and the Bank of Canada is buying our Canadian bonds. But when you are doing that, when you are printing money out of thin air, you are creating inflation. And that's what we have. The official rate of inflation coming from the Bank of Canada and Statistics Canada, it's about 2%. Do you really believe that the inflation is 2%? No. The inflation is about between 6 and 8%. So if you have an increase in your salary in line with inflation, and you have a nice boss that will give you 2% increase, you are poor. Because the real inflation is 6 or 8%. Every year we are poor, and yes, the economy is growing, but our standard of living is going down. So, mass immigration, and add to that radical multiculturalism, are undermining our economy, but also our social cohesion and tradition of peaceful coexistence. And mass immigration is rapidly changing the cultural character and social fabric of our country. In the past, a couple of decades ago, immigrants who came here gradually integrated into our society. They kept, of course, some aspects of the culture of their country of origin. They became Canadian, but with a distinct flavor. But that is very different today. They are coming here to recreate the society and culture they left behind. And they are living permanently in a ghetto from the larger Canadian society. You know, just go in some places here in BC. You're going to see, maybe a day you'll need a bill like the Bill 101 in Quebec to protect English. You know, it's happening everywhere. We are not asking them, the immigrants, to be part of our society because of the Multiculturalism Act. We are telling them, keep your culture, keep your values. Don't speak English or French. Be welcome in Canada. And what is happening? They are living in ghettos outside of our society. And now the majority, more than 75% of our immigrants, are not economic immigrants. What is the definition of an economic immigrant? It's a person that will come here because a Canadian entrepreneur wasn't able to find that person, a Canadian, for that job. And so that person will come here and they will have a job when they will be here. And so they will be active, and it would be easier for that person to integrate our society when you have a job and you have a salary. But more than 75% of our immigrants don't have a job. We are paying for them. It's very hard to be part of a society if you're not independent. So it's very costly for the government, for us, and they don't have an incentive to integrate into our society and adopt our Canadian culture and Canadian values. But we know that a nation must be based on a sense of belonging, of participating in a common national project, sharing the same values, being different from the rest of the world. It's only when these sentiments are widely shared that we can develop the trust and common understanding necessary for our institution to function. Canada, because of mass immigration and multiculturalism, is becoming a fragmented, Balkanized society where ethnic tribes live side by side. The sense of community is disappearing. Tribal conflicts are being imported. Violence in the street is becoming common in our big cities here in Canada. The multiculturalist ideology has failed in Europe and here in Canada. It's also turning us, our society, into a low-trust society. When it's obvious that only a high level of trust between people interacting with each other are guarantees for a peaceful society with low crime, high mobility, and well-functioning institutions. When you cannot trust your neighbor because you don't understand their values or they don't share the same values, actually, it's a low-trust society. And that was not the case a couple of years ago in Canada. Now it's becoming the case. We must recognize now that all social customs, in our society are not equal. All values are not equal. And that's important. But the logic with the multiculturalism ideology is for them, for these globalists, is to telling us that every culture is equal. That's not the case. You know why it's not the case? You can go on YouTube and social media and see some videos of newcomers in Canada who are doing things that are not in line with our values. So Our party, the People's Party of Canada, is the only party that proposes to radically change Canada's disastrous immigration policy. How? It's simple. By having a complete moratorium on immigration. Yes, a moratorium for as long as it takes to be able to live in a society that we love. To be able, for example, for a couple to buy a house, to be able for young students to have an apartment. So we need to have a moratorium to fix that crisis. But also, there's a lot of, like I said, temporary foreign workers. They're coming here and they're taking Canadian jobs. So we must abolish that program and we must allow only temporary foreign workers, like it was in the beginning of that program, only for the agriculture sector. So now you have temporary foreign workers that are coming here and working at Walmart, Tim Hortons. No, this is cheap labor. This is a gift from these establishment politicians to big businesses. So we will abolish the temporary foreign workers program. And what about the international students? Now universities are using that to help them, and that is very useful for them because they have a lot of money coming from that program. But I'm not concerned about that. If university fees are, and universities are using international students to increase their income, they must find another way to do that with their provincial government. So we need to radically reduce the number of international students in our country. We need to eliminate also the fact that an international student can work about 20 hours a week in Canada here. If you're a student coming from China or another country, you are here to study. You must have enough money to study and to be able to live in Canada. We must abolish that option that the federal government gave them to be able to work on campuses or to work outside campuses. You are coming here to study, you can study, but after that, you must go back home. And that's not the case right now. We have fake international students coming from India with a fake diploma that after 1 year or 2 years, they don't want to go back to their country of origin, to India. They want to stay here in Canada. And Poilievre and Trudeau said it's okay. Actually, Poilievre and Trudeau are telling them, you don't respect our legislation because you're supposed to go back to your country after you study. You had a permit for international students. You had a permit to study in Canada. You had your diploma. Do like what you did when we created that program more than 25 years ago. Go back to your country. We didn't have any problem at that time, but now they want to stay here and they want to work here. And Trudeau and Poilievre are saying to them, you're welcome. What are we doing here? We are telling them, you don't respect our legislation, That's okay. That's so good that we'll give you a gift. We'll give you the permanent residency for not respecting our law. That's what is happening. Polyev and Trudeau are okay with that. What we must do is to deport them if they don't want to quit our country, to leave. That's what we must do. You're here to study. You did your job, go back to your country. Don't try to take Canadian jobs and stay here. And using the international students, another kind of a door to be a permanent resident. If you want to be a permanent resident, apply in your country of origin to be a permanent resident. And we must be able to do an interview with you. We must be able to ask you if you share our Canadian values, our Western civilization values. And that's the process that we had a couple of years ago. Now, that's not a process anymore. With 500,000 permanent residents a year, we don't have any interview with them. We don't know if they share our values. So, international students, if you don't want to leave, we're going to deport you. But also, there are claims that anywhere between 20,000 and 500,000 illegals live in Canada. People who stayed here after their asylum claims were rejected or after their visas as international students or temporary foreign workers expired. So that's why all these people will be new voters for the Conservatives and the Liberals. So they try to buy vote by telling them, okay, you'll be able to stay here. But I can tell you, deportation is the solution. Reward for not respecting our laws or cheating. We should also repeal the Multiculturalism Act and eliminate all funding to promote multiculturalism, and instead emphasize the integration of immigrants into our Canadian society. This is the truth we must tell Canadians about mass immigration and radical multiculturalism, which are the biggest threat to the survival of our society and culture. So now, what is the truth about workism? The truth about workism is that it is a destructive, toxic, far-left ideology that reduces all social and economic issues to race, sex, and gender. The woke want us to be judged not by the content of our character, not by our personality as individuals, but by the color of our skin. It's cultural Marxism. It is a worldview that divides people into two classes, oppressor and oppressed. And you know it? White heterosexual men are the oppressors, and non-white women, religious and sexual minorities are the oppressed. But I'm telling you, calling a white man an oppressor and excluding him from a job simply because of the color of his skin is racist. There is no other way to put it. And teaching a young white girl to be ashamed of her skin color is also racist. This discrimination is immoral, it's all always wrong, and it is the opposite of our Western civilization values, where everyone is equal under the law. So the People's Party is the only party that will put an end to this nonsense by abolishing all federal diversity, equity, and inclusion programs and prohibiting official discrimination based on these irrelevant characteristics. We will promote common sense. We will promote unity over diversity. We will promote equality of rights over equity. We will promote meritocracy over inclusion. This is the truth we must tell Canadians. And what is the truth about radical gender ideology? Actually, I did tell the truth to people who were welcoming us today. I did try it, but like you just said, they don't want to hear. They have an idea. They think that they're right. We are the bad ones. They are the good ones. But, you know, if we speak the truth with passion, conviction, determination, they will eventually come on our side. But that's a big challenge. And that's why, you know, I like big challenges, so I'm ready for that. But the truth about that radical gender ideology, it is that it contradicts basic biological realities and will damage an entire generation of young Canadians. Trans activists, like the one we saw tonight, and their woke supporters are actively indoctrinating and confusing children. In some Canadian schools today, boys and girls are being taught that they may actually not really be boys and girls. And when they get confused about their gender identity, instead of helping them to accept their body and sex, they are being encouraged by these trans activists and woke. They have been encouraged by that trans industry of psychologists and surgeons to start transitioning. But as you know, there's no transition. A boy will always be a boy, and a girl will always be a girl. They are pushing them towards an unhealthy lifestyle, a lifestyle filled with harmful hormone treatments and invasive surgeries. That is not the lifestyle that we should be normalized and encouraged. Our children must be protected. And actually, that was their slogan tonight. Protect children. It's like Antifa. You know, Antifa, they must be against racism, but they're the racists. And they're saying, you know, protect children, and they're the ones who are not protecting our children. So it's like in 1984, you know, war is peace, peace is war. So when you know that, you're ready to fight. So our children must be protected from this insidious ideology that encourages and exploits gender confusion. There's no such thing as transitioning. So, meanwhile, all the other establishment political parties in our country at the federal level, and yes, including the fake conservatives, voted unanimously to criminalize parents and therapists who want children to accept their body rather than mutilating it. They should all be ashamed, and we must tell them to Canadians. They're the one who started that trans revolution in our country. So we are the only party that is ready and is fighting right now against that ideology. The Liberal and the NDP coalition have been destroying Canada with these disastrous policies, but Pierre Poilievre, listen to me, Pierre Poilievre, who will likely be the next Prime Minister, is going to disappoint everybody. Why? Because the fake conservatives are afraid to tell the truth. They lie to us on all these issues. They won't stop mass immigration and deport illegals. They won't question radical multiculturalism, and they won't defend Canadian identity. They won't fight radical gender ideology and anti-white racism. So, like you, I want to get rid of Justin Trudeau, for sure. But when I'm looking at the polls and the focus group, I'm happy. Because right now, a year before the election, Poilievre is winning in the polls. Trudeau won't be able to be elected. He's winning by 20 points. 20 points, it's a huge majority. So what I'm telling you, you will get rid of Justin Trudeau. Now, you can and you must vote for your values. You need us, the People's Party of Canada, that will keep Poilievre honest. We are your insurance policy that Poilievre will govern as a conservative government. We will approve him or vote for him or support him when he will be like a conservative government. We will shame him when he will do the opposite. So there's no risk, and there's no splitting the vote. If you split an apple, you have two pieces of an apple. But I just told you, our policies are so different. Poilievre is not fighting for you. He's not fighting to end mass immigration. He's not fighting on the real issues for the future of our country. We are different. He doesn't have the courage to fight that because our ideas right now are not that popular with the majority of the population. But like I said in the beginning, it's not because our ideas are not that popular today that they are not just and true. They are just and true, and they will become popular. For example, in 2019, I was supposed to be a racist because I said, end mass immigration. We must end that right now. That is destroying our society. The Global Mail, the Toronto Star wrote pieces about me and the PPC saying that we were racist. The same Global Mail today is writing, and they are writing pieces against mass immigration. So we were right in 2019, we are even more right today. And so that was not popular. popular to be against mass immigration in 2019, but we are doing politics based on ideas, by conviction. And we know if you speak about your ideas, the more you speak, the more popular they will become. And that's the reality right now with mass immigration. Let's do the same on climate change. Let's do the same on radical gender ideology. So you need us to grow our influence in Ottawa, to move the Overton window, to push Poilievre in the right direction. There's no risk. If you look at the polls, he will win. So you're free now to vote in line with your ideas. That's what we are doing at the PPC. We are doing politics differently. And that's not a slogan, that's the reality. We are doing politics and sharing our ideas, our vision for this country. At every election, it's always the same electoral platform. And if you want to know more about the People's Party of Canada, go on our website, read our platform. It will be the same when the election will come. And you know, when you are giving your time or working for a as a volunteer, working for a political party, and if you're with a party because you like the ideas, but the ideas of that party are changing at every election, you may have a chance to waste your time. But if you support us, if you become a member of our party, if you are giving us money to promote our ideas, you are not wasting your time, you are not wasting your money, you are investing in you and in this country because we want change. We want pander to special interest groups like big corporations for having cheap labor. We want pander, and I won't put a costume every weekend like Poilievre to have some votes. So, try to find me with something and on internet, you won't be able. If you like what I'm saying also the same in English and in French. So, it's always the same. And that's why tonight, my wife is not with me. She knows what I'm saying, She's tired of that. For the last 6 years, I've been saying the same thing. But we can see growth. Look in UK. Nigel, with the Reform Party, it took him 6 times for being elected. It won't be that long for us in Canada. But with 14% of the vote, he was able to have 5 candidates elected. So we are growing as a party. From 5%, we may go to 10 at the next election. We may have our first candidate elected, but we will start that common sense revolution. And you cannot do a revolution in one election. So if you want to be part of the change, if you want to be the change, it's in your hands. You can decide. And that's the PPC is there for the long run and won't change. So I'm not exaggerating when I accuse the fake conservatives and the liberals of putting our country on a road to destruction. If we allow these establishment politicians to continue to forcibly change the cultural character and social fabric of our country with mass immigration, extreme multiculturalism, workism, radical gender ideology, Canada will eventually cease to exist as a distinct nation. We have to reverse this trend if we want to make sure that we and our children still have a country that is like Canada, we know 25 years from now. A country with its unique identity intact, a free and prosperous country. And the only way to do it is to fight the lies and tell the truth to Canadians. And in times like these, you have a duty. You have a duty to not hide your convictions and anything you believe is necessary and true. You have a duty to tell what you believe to be just and true to the people around you. You have a duty to be tenacious and persistent in the defense of the truth. Because, yes, you are the defenders of our civilization, and you shall not be afraid to affirm it. What is the point? What is the point of having the best ideas, the best solutions for a better society if we keep them to ourselves because we are too afraid to displease others? You have indestructible weapons: your ideas, your words, the truth. You must have the courage to speak your mind. It is the only way to counter all the lies and the nonsense. And it's never too late to fight for what is right. It's fundamental not only to have a better society, but more importantly, to keep your dignity. The person who tells the truth politely, gently, persistently is strong and free. And the more you tell the truth, the stronger you become. And I can tell you, it's contagious. That is what I want you to do. I want you to stay true to your ideas, true to your convictions. And if you do that, we will win the battle of ideas and live in a better society. Thank you.